On this episode of Dimensions in Ministry, Lee Berger talks about GCI's U.S.-based mission opportunities, including Crossing Borders, Mexico Missions Outreach, with our host, Dr. J. Michael Feazell.
Lee, it's great to have you here.
Good to be with you.
I want to talk to you about short-term mission trips. You've been on at least a dozen, and I just want to talk about the first one, how it got started, what happened, what caused you to get going, and how that led to a second one.
Okay. Well, when I went on my first mission trip, I wasn't planning for it to be a mission trip. I was planning that it would be a different kind of experience, something more youth-oriented, specifically youth-oriented, and kind of a training trip for some youth. But as the thing turned out, it ended up being a mission trip, and that's just the way it molded itself. And we went down and went into Mexico, and we met a lot of ministry people, pastors.
Your church is in Texas.
Yeah, church is in Texas. So it wasn't that far. It was 4 or 5 hours away. Texas is a big state. And we got down to the border and crossed over. And we had previously set up some meetings with some ministry people, pastors, orphanage leaders, people that do benevolence ministry and so forth. And we met them and spent several days doing a lot of different projects and helping them with their ministries. And it was a mission trip. And it was kind of we kind of used that as kind of a get the feel of it the first time I went down there. It was just a small group of us, and it wasn't publicized that it was a real mission trip. And we checked it out, and we liked it. We had good results, and they invited us to come back, and there seemed to be a lot that we could do to help. And so the next summer, by then we had it set up as a real live mission trip and publicized it. It's called Crossing Borders.
And so tell us about that title.
Well, we go, like I say, down to the border of Mexico, and currently we stay every night on the U.S. side of the border. And during the day then, we go down to the border and cross over and spend all day doing projects over in Mexico. We bill our specific mission camp as kind of a sampler camp of mission work for people who have never maybe been on a mission trip before, and they're not sure what's entailed. They don't know what different kinds of ministry you can do to help in a different culture, in a different country. And so rather than go do one project for the whole time we're there, we do different things every day, sometimes a couple of different things every day. So we're exposed to a lot of different people, a lot of different areas, a lot of different events and types of helps that we do.
How many people usually go on these trips with you?
We have anywhere from a dozen to about 20 or 25. We like to keep it within that range. It's easier for travel purposes, and we go to help ministries that aren't huge ministries, and if there's more of us than there are of them, then it gets a little unwieldy. So we like to keep it more intimate and a little more hands-on that way.
And is this once a year?
Well, we go in the summer for a week, and then we go back in the winter because we've made these relationships and these contacts in the summer, and we hate to not go back for a whole year, so we go back in the middle of the winter. And we take some shoebox types of gifts, mainly for the children, and we go to a couple of different colonias, what they call their neighborhoods, and we distribute several hundred shoeboxes to the kids in the winter.
Some people might say that they're looking forward to the gifts, but that's it, and probably lots of Americans go down there and do similar things as this. And so you're really not doing anything in terms of the gospel. You're really just bringing gifts, which is okay in itself, but can you comment on that?
Yeah, and that would be true if that's all we did. I will admit the first time or two when we went, we kind of didn't have our feet on the ground as well. But we begin to see the gospel's the core to everything. And you don't want to go to a place, whether you're talking to adults or children or whoever, and not share that good news with them. So beginning after our first trip or two, we make it a definite point to share the gospel. We do it sometimes through Vacation Bible School lessons. We also do puppetry. There's puppets at the camp where we stay, and we do puppet shows. They're gospel-oriented messages. We do drama skits a lot of times. The songs that we do are specific to their culture, but they're very Christ-focused songs. And so we try to do it, and this isn't just for kids. The parents and the adults relate to the puppets and the drama and the music also very well. And so we use those tools a lot of times to get the message across. This last trip was the first time that our people on the trip were actually asked to conduct a full service, a church service type of thing, where we were the speakers and we actually gave the sermons about the gospel. And so that was kind of thrilling for us to do that for the first time. But we always share that in some way, whether if we're just there for an hour or two, there's ways we can do it. If we're there all day, of course, we can get a little more in-depth with it. But they know why we're there. They know about the love of God, and we try to just pass that along to them.
Now, aren't some of them already Christians? In other words, they already have a church, and you're doing things in tandem with churches there.
Mm-hmm. Some of the places we go to are Christian-based. Some of the orphanages may be, Christian-centered orphanages. Mm-hmm. Some aren't. When we go out to the colonias, that's just whoever comes in from the houses around there. The specific colonia that we went to this time and spent most of our time, the pastor was trying to reach out to the unchurched in the colonia. So we helped him a lot with going around inviting people in for feedings or for service or for the Vacation Bible School. So we actually had a pretty high percentage of people involved who weren't professing Christians at that point. So it is good because sometimes we go there to bolster and encourage those that are already involved in Christian ministry.
Now, what are some of the comments of people who go with you on these short-term mission trips? What do people say when you get back? What's the response?
I think the general response, especially for someone, a first-timer, is they don't ever imagine, they could not have ever imagined that they would be touched that much emotionally. To see the needs, to see the differences in the culture, to see the kind of life people have to operate under, not just the difference of materialism necessarily, but there's political and there's unrest and there's other issues that sometimes we're in America not attuned to, that they have to deal with every day. And when we go and we immerse ourselves in that for several days, or a week, it really breaks our heart to see what goes on and what they have to put up with. And so our people are just touched by that emotionally. And they say they're going to go back home and be a lot more appreciative and thankful for their parents or their families or their children, their home, whatever it might be. So I think that's the main thing I get.
You have a big age group, right, or age range. So anybody and everybody.
Yeah, our age group, we bill it as age 15 to 99. We don't have anybody yet that's come at 99 years old, but we have had a couple of people well into their 70s and some in their 60s over the dozen or so times we've gone down. Of course, it's a great thing for youth to go, because youth are learning when they're 14, 15, 16, 17, ideal time. They want to change the world. They're beginning to see things that are out of kilter and they want to do something about it. And so if they can come on a mission trip, a short-term trip, they can, I think, begin to solidify some of their thinking a little bit more. And they do make a difference when they're there. And maybe then being there, even if they don't come back there, they can take those principles home and they can make a difference back in their town, in their family, in their church at the same time.
What about the danger aspect? There's sometimes a fear of, going into Mexico. Yeah. How do you work with that?
There are things that we're careful about. I'm not sure the American news media is as accurate as it probably needs to be about what's going on in not only Mexico but other places. But when we do go there, we have these contacts with these people and we keep in touch with them all year, our ministry partners on the other side of the border. they let us know if there's areas that we need to stay away from or be gone by a certain time. We've never, in all my trips down there, we've never been accosted. We've never been, stopped by any bad people. Never heard gunshots ringing out around us. And we've, like I said, been there a dozen times. That's a dozen weeks plus the winter trips. Haven't seen anything. It's there, and we're very careful. And right now in Mexico, we're only operating during the day. We're back on the U.S. side, by nightfall, just as a precaution.
Oh, if somebody's going to go on one of these, there's a little bit of prep work as far as training and discussions and that they go through as a part of getting ready to go down, right?
We try to inform people before they come, if they've never been before, what's up. Our website has a lot of information on it that they can study. Sometimes we'll send them a study guide in advance that we buy from a short-term mission source. It kind of mentally, spiritually gets them prepared for that. We also mail out some simple words in the language that they need to learn so that hopefully they can practice those a little bit. So you can talk to people, what's your name, where are you from, just things like that. We always have some Spanish speakers with our group, and sometimes people say, do I have to speak fluent Spanish to go on your trip? Well, no, that's part of the experience, is maybe you don't speak Spanish, but you're immersing yourself in their culture. We have people on the trip that do speak Spanish, and so they interpret for us where it needs interpreting. But the main thing that I tell those people to do is smile, hug, love, play, be with, just experience it in that way, even if you don't know the language.
So sometimes when you've gone to an orphanage, you actually get on and play some games with the kids.
Yeah, we're big goof-offs when we go to the orphanages. We like that. It's kind of a stress reliever. We take down a few toys. We take down some big long jump ropes so they can do gang jump roping, and we'll take some hula hoops and some frisbees and some bubbles to blow and craft supplies and coloring books. We'll take those things down with us. And once we hit an orphanage, if we have time, we'll play for 2 or 3 hours, go out and play soccer with the boys and do stuff, and we'll cook them a meal. They usually don't get necessarily a cooked meal all the time. We'll bring in the food and cook them a meal, and maybe we'll do, like I say, we'll do the vacation Bible school or the puppets or the dramas and songs, teach them some songs in Spanish that they might not be familiar with, and just have a fun time with them.
Well, some of the people who have been on your mission trips have commented that they feel they've gained more, or at least as much, or if not more, than they've actually given down.
Yeah, that's true. I wasn't prepared for that when I went down. I thought, well, we're the rich Americans. We're going to go across the border to these economically poor, deprived areas, and we're going to just be the ones giving. And what I didn't know, was that just being with them and sharing with them and sharing that part of their life and so forth, and just feeling the love come back from them and so forth, that really we feel like we get more than we give. It's just, I guess it's the way God multiplies that kind of thing. You give it and it comes back to you more than you gave. And I wasn't really prepared for that. But every time I've been, and people who have been several times say the same thing. Just always shocked how you go down just prepared to give. Like I say, you're all prepared. You've got your resources. You spend your time. And then you just feel so blessed by them by the time you leave.
Do you think that people who are better off economically than others tend to think they're better than
Oh yeah, it's a cultural thing in the books I've read and studied about it. That's one of the hardest things about cross-cultural, is your culture is always seen as better and theirs is seen as lesser. And you're going to share/impose your values, your culture, your benefits on them. And they may not want your benefits, what you see as benefits, because it may not fit with their life and their culture. And so we've learned to be sensitive to what will benefit them, to not go down there with stuff that we think they want and doing things that we think would help them. But we ask a lot of questions and we confer with our partners down there and say, you know, how should we react? What resources should we bring? What should we do while we're there that will really help them?
If somebody's thinking about going on a short-term mission trip, and where would they find some information?
Well, in our denomination, GCI, our website, gci.org, would be prime. But if they'll follow the Generations Ministry link, which will bring them into our camp program, and that'll be the youth camps and the mission camps and mission trips. And there's 3 or 4 now mission-oriented trips that people can take. It's not just crossing borders, there's several others. There's others that have been to Africa and the Philippines and the Bahamas and various places. So we're one of several. They can also go to our specific website, which is cbmission.org, Center for Crossing Borders Mission, cbmission.org. And then I think the other, if they go to the general church website, I think it'll link them to the specific websites for the other missions as well.
You can go to, hit the participate link, and then events will also bring up a number of opportunities.
Good.
Who are some of the others that are conducting short-term mission trips right now?
There's, well, Janet Morrison and her group. They're based out of California. They've taken the last 2 or 3 years, have gone overseas, that is, you know, across the oceans on trips. And wonderful trips. I've talked to Janet, and Janet's actually visited our camp, came for a whole week one time. We enjoyed having her, and she shared a lot that she had learned about mission trips, and we shared with her. And so we're trying to reciprocally help each other, you know, as best we can.
Janet has a good article, by the way, on in Odyssey that can be brought up on the website as well.
Yeah, that's right.
About mission trips, short-term mission trips, how to prepare for them, value of them, and so on.
Yeah, yeah. Joel Clevenger and David Botha, I believe, have mission trips that they've organized and are working on. I'm not sure of who all else is doing them, but there's several out there that are going, some closer to our shores and some farther away.
If somebody's contemplating it, putting it off, just thinking about it, what advice can you give them?
If they're at all thinking about it, or my suggestion is everyone should try a short-term mission trip.
Give it a shot.
Everyone should give it a shot. Not everybody is a missionary. You know, God calls different people to different tasks within the body. But you may not know if He's calling you to that unless you go try it out. And the short-term mission trips, those from a week to 2 weeks, are pretty common. That's what ours are. It's long enough to get a better glimpse, to really see if something tugs on your heart. And if it does, then you can pursue it further. If not, you've had great experience. You've exposed yourself out there to something wider.
It's a great intercultural experience.
Yeah, and if you don't pursue it long term, you've had that experience. It's awesome.
And you're with a group of people that are together, so it's relatively safe that way.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you're not alone, and a lot of fun things can come out of that.
Yeah, yeah. There's friendships that develop out of that. It's one of those bonding things, like going to college together, something like that.
Yeah.
You know, or having a kind of a major emotional experience together that, you know, 20 years later you still remember those people.
Yeah.
You know. One thing I'd like to suggest is that people might consider going on a mission trip like this as a family, or at least part of their family together. We've had a family one time of mom and dad and 3 kids. We've had a mother and a daughter. We've had a dad and 2 sons. You know,
kind of a bonding
that was
experience
that was awesome to see them together having those kind of experiences. Yeah. And then, if a mom and dad are a little worried about the kid going by himself, they're there to kind of keep an eye on things too. So. Works out good.
It sounds like fun.
Well, I hope some people will consider it. It's part of a Christian experience that I think is worthwhile to everybody.
And it lasts how long?
It's a week in the summer, and really just a long weekend trip in the winter. Good thing to do. You'll never regret it, and it'll be something you'll remember the rest of your life.
Well, thanks for your good work in putting it together, making it happen.
Good. Glad to do it.
Appreciate your time.
All right, thank you.
This has been Dimensions in Ministry, a production of Grace Communion International.